Joining us today. Everyone, welcome Ashlee. She is one of our elementary educators at the schoolhouse in New York. Ashlee today is going to be presenting quite a complex topic actually in geography, and it is all about the layers of the earth and the composition of the earth. So we have about 3 parts to this series here that Ashlee will be presenting. So we're going to start off with part 1, which involves just a little bit of information, talking about the layers and their functions, the parts of the barosphere, and the parts of the crust. So Ashlee, would you please educate us a little bit on how to present these somewhat complex topics to our learners?
Great, thank you for having me. So we start this with a prelude, which is one of the activities that you would do when you tell the first great story. And we want to do this just before talking about the composition of the earth, because now we're connecting the more abstract concept of these particles to what they actually are and how they've actually built the earth that we live on. So we talk about how, as the earth cooled, the particles settled according to their weight. So here I'm just pouring a little bit of water into my test tube. I also have droppers that you could use to pour. However, we're using oil and molasses, which are kind of dense liquids, so it's not going to be quite as smooth to use the dropper. So I'm going to do my best to pour very neatly. We have all of our materials labeled always, so the learners know what we are using, and it will be available to them in the classroom or the learning environment afterwards, so they can explore on their own. And I've poured my oil, which is sitting on top of the water. And lastly, my molasses, which, as we know, moves rather slowly. So bear with me here for a moment. I like to put the molasses in last because it does go to the bottom, and it's kind of cool and interesting for the learners to experience it moving through the other 2 layers. So the order I use is typically water, which will eventually settle in the middle, oil on the top, and then we would do the molasses at the end. And as you can see, it kind of drips down a little bit. So we have our 3 layers. Another option is to use food coloring for the water. Typically, I would use a bright color so you can see the distinction between the layers. And here we just wanted to say that on the bottom layer here, we have our densest, our heaviest particles. On top of it, we have particles that are a little bit lighter. And on the top, we have the lightest particles that have settled now in that order, which created the earth and the composition of our earth and the layers of our earth.